Hello guys, it hasn't been that long and I'm here again with another video. How funny is that? Today's video is about 16 Danmaku slash STGs that are not made by Touhou creator ZUN, otherwise known as the lead developer of Team Shanghai Alice. Yes, we're talking about mostly Touhou fan games, but you'll see, trust me. Now before we get started, I want to give you the lay of the land. I am not very good at Danmakus in general. You're not going to see any playthroughs, if some of them are even completed that is, that are 1cc. 1cc basically means you just complete the game in one continue, and there's no possible way I could do that with any of these games. I'm just not good enough, unfortunately. The second thing to note is that several games had to make the cutting room floor. First of all, there is a game that I own that is a Danmaku, but it is in early access, and I generally have a rule that I'm not going to review games in early access, although I believe the footage you're seeing is of a game that is in early access, but this is more of just B-roll footage. Check it out if you're interested. It's a Touhou farming game. Regardless, that's the first rule. The second rule in general is that I don't really want to recommend free games, because I want to give a little preview of something that you could spend your money on, as opposed to something that you can just try for free. You know, that's not really a good thing to do, just to recommend something free when you can just play it yourself and find out if it's worth playing. Those are the two general ground rules I had before making this list. When it comes to Danmakus, there really isn't any set rule per se. Usually your character can slow down with the press of a button, although one of the games I'm going to be showing doesn't have that ability, funny enough. But usually it's a vertical top-down shooter with a lot of bullets and also multiple difficulties, believe it or not. In fact, typically you have to beat the game on normal or better depending on what game it is, and you have to 1cc it to see the true ending, otherwise you see a bad ending. That's assuming the game even has a story, because I believe one game in this video doesn't even have any sort of a story whatsoever. That's enough sort of explaining. Let's get on to the first game. You'll figure out the rest of what I'm going to be talking about as I'm talking about it. So without further ado, here's the first game. First off, I want to talk about the first Danmaku I played that wasn't made by ZUN in general. We're talking about Touhou Makuka Sai, Fantastic Danmaku Festival. Actually, it was the sequel to the game that got me interested, but that's neither here nor there. One thing you'll notice about pretty much all the actual Touhou fan games that are on this list is that all of them initially released sometime before the Steam release, at least most of them. You'll see which ones aren't when we get to them. This one actually released in 2014 initially, but didn't see a Steam release until 2018. Another common theme you'll see in all these games is that they're pretty much exclusively either made by Chinese or Japanese devs. In this case, this is made by a Chinese dev. You know, usually these games have some sort of distinguishing gimmick that separates them from the mainline Touhou entries. In fact, usually mainline Touhou entries have their own distinct gimmick for each game. This one is one that I, funny enough, failed to really use in the footage that I've shown, and that gimmick is that when you press the slow button mode for long enough, it builds up a charge that you can then let go of and release. At least with one of the characters, the second character that I use in the subsequent playthrough doesn't exactly have that ability. So when I'm playing a Touhou fan game, I typically like to play the characters that you typically don't play in mainline entries. You know, every Touhou game is going to have Reimu, it's going to have Marissa, and sometimes it has Sine, but pretty much that's all you get when it comes to characters that are consistently in Touhou games. When it comes to the fan games, though, I like to play all the brand new sort of characters that they come up with, or fan favorites that return. A general rule of any Touhou game, fan or non-fan, is typically they have fantastic music. That's mainly due to the strong melodic compositions that make up every single mainline Touhou game, and the sort of interpolation that each, you know, fan game interpolates. But god damn, the music in this series is fucking fantastic. It takes all the best melodies of every single Touhou game and make them honestly better than the original, if I didn't know that was possible. This game in general is a fan service game through and through, with many themes, many characters, and many songs coming back. It is truly a love letter to the Touhou community, and it is so freaking exquisite, man. Every single aesthetic aspect is on point. It is still a Touhou Toho fan game through and through, though. It does not make the concessions that some of the other video games in this list do, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just not going to hold your hand, and it's going to make you work to get that 1cc, which, as I've said, I suck at. Oh boy, there was one game on this video that is fucking brutal, dude. Like, seriously. I was playing on hard mode, and it fucking whooped my ass. It looked like a lunatic mode on any other fan game. We'll get to that sooner rather than later. But keep in mind, this video is titled 16 Danmakus Not Made by ZUN. It's not called fan games for a reason, because there are in fact games in this video that are wholly original IPs not related in any way to the Touhou universe. And let's get started with the first one. Although this one is so indistinguishable from a Touhou game that they might as well have just used Touhou characters. I don't know why they didn't. Claims to be a rhythm Danmaku, but there really isn't much rhythm beyond the sort of musical theme of the game and the sound effects kind of being in sync with what you're doing. It's called Barrage Musical: A Fantasy of Tempest. It even has that weird esoteric naming scheme that all the Touhou games have, and all the Touhou fan games follow. It also, like many Touhou games, at least early Touhou games, has a weird resolution and odd compatibility with modern hardware. As you can see with the footage, every single game that has this weird resolution problem, instead of just putting a black bar, put in some sort of art that was fan-made of Touhou, I guess, screen or something. I don't know what the fuck it is. Which, by the way, I just looked it up. This game came out in 2017, and the max resolution is 1280 by 960. Not even close to 1920 by 1080, which is like something that's been a thing for like almost 10 years at this point. 4K probably existed in 2017, but God forbid any sort of Touhou fan game or even Touhou game itself go up that high. I mean, we're just now getting 1080p in actual Touhou games, so God knows when we'll actually get 4K. Regardless, it's fucking insane. The game came out 8 years ago. 8 years ago. Things weren't that primitive back then, were they? Oh, and by the way, I know I'll get this in the comments from all you fucking degenerates. I'm not rigging the story. I don't care about any of these little girls and their little fucking girl stories. I'm not a pedo. So get the fuck out, you That's enough waffling about. Let's talk about the actual game itself. The main gimmick in this Danmaku, besides the whole quote-unquote rhythm thing, is that you collect coins, and coins are used at the mystery shop. And also, if you bought a specific game called Project Barrel, you unlock a special power-up that is of limited resource, and each time you buy it, it costs more and more. It's an ability that lets you auto-dodge out of the way of bullets and basically auto-win the game, but it's very limited. You buy in increments of 1 minute per power-up, basically. But you unlock other cool things, such as practice stages and practice bosses and music from the stages and CGs from the stages, as well as a brand new difficulty mode, Ultra, which is usually only reserved for when you 1cc the game, but I guess not in this one, because this shit ain't Touhou, hee. Although you have to unlock Lunatic mode as well, which I didn't realize until looking back at the footage. If you're wondering why I didn't include Project Barrel, it's basically because I didn't really consider it a Danmaku, if you will. It's more of like its own separate thing, in my opinion. If we're ranking this in the grand scheme of all the Danmakus in this video, it's certainly one of the weaker ones, although it really isn't that expensive. You know, none of these games are really that expensive, except for one, but we'll get to that one. But other than that, yeah, it's, you know, it's okay for the money. But there is a sort of beginner-friendly successor to this game that is kind of like a tutorial for all sort of Danmakus. I'm not really needing a tutorial, so I didn't buy it, but maybe check that one out first. I don't know. I guess I should probably do this one, considering the fact I've been alluding to it. This is the hardest Touhou fan game probably ever. It's Eastern Snow Lotus Flower, Abyss Soul Lotus, which I guess translates in some way to Touhou in Chinese. I don't know. Anyway, this is published by the same publisher, Slime Smile, that published the last game we talked about. I would say this is the first game on the list that you can't play in English, but after recording, in fact, not too long before I recorded this very sentence, did I find out that there is in fact an English patch for this game. You can find it in the discussion tab for this very game. And what the hey, I'll include links links to the patch in the description of this very video, if I remember. Now you may be thinking, hey Matt, why is this game the hardest Touhou fan game ever? Well, first off, look at the footage. This is hard mode, and this is the amount of bullets on screen. And look at this footage. This is the footage for lunatic mode. Second of all, you notice that timer right there? In order to 1cc it, the game that is, you have to beat it within that time frame. Another thing you usually need to do in order to get the best ending in a Touhou game is defeat each stage of the boss within a certain time frame and don't use a power-up. Now if you notice, I failed a lot of these not because I used a power-up, but because the time limits on the bosses are insanely stringent. And you really don't have a set amount of power-ups you can use per session, that being every continue. There's a bar at the bottom left that only fills up when you graze bullets, and it does not refill when you lose a life. This game also has a gimmick that many other Touhou fan games have, that being the partner system. The partner system basically acts like a different version of the slow button. When you activate the slow button, it enables a different partner with a different set of bullets and a different special move. Once you let go of the slow button, it defaults back to the main character of the playthrough. And funny enough, I would say that makes the game harder, in fact, if it wasn't already hard enough. I do want to give a shout out to the art of this game. Normally Touhou games are known for their questionable art, to say the least, but this one is definitely not the most beautiful Danmaku on this list, but it is probably number 2 or number 3. It is a very pretty game with very good sprites. Believe it or not, some of the games in this video do have performance issues, but this is certainly not one of them, and it's especially impressive given the sheer amount of bullets on screen. So, in conclusion, if you're up for a challenge, pick it up, but if you're not, then I would say avoid. Let's pivot a bit and talk about a game that is very cheap, very short, and is actually made by, I believe, a non-Chinese or Japanese dev. The game is only in English. It's something in Chinese letters, Misremembered Memories. It's a Touhou game, a Touhou fan game based on the classic PC-98 Touhou project games. The game is essentially one giant boss rush mode with one playable character. If you beat the game, you unlock a second playable character. The difficulty modes are basically hard, harder, and even fucking harder. The game generously gives you 7 players and 3 bombs, which by the way, I kind of forgot that that's what it's called in every single Danmaku. It's called a bomb. Kept calling it everything else except for a bomb. Well, that's 3 bombs per life, that is. And you can only really use it in the initial phase. Otherwise, if you use it in the special phase of each single boss stage, I don't fucking know what it's called, it does nothing, and it only really affects your ability to 1cc. Last game may be the hardest Touhou fan game, but this one is only not the hardest because it's so absurdly short. But it is also the cheapest one on the list, that being at only 5 buckaroos, and it usually goes on sale for even cheaper. Which, that's kind of a benefit of Touhou fan games and non-Touhou Danmakus, is that they actually do go on sale. Unlike Touhou games, except for recently, I think it was the summer sale that fucking pretty much all the official Touhou games, barring the most recent one, went on sale. And that was certainly a bittersweet thing to wake up to. Anecdote aside, it's definitely worth the money. I wouldn't say it's the most bang for your buck, but I mean, you can't go wrong for the price, really. Next up, let's go with a Touhou fan game that is one of 2 on this list developed by the Loong team. This game is Touhou Chaos of Black Loong. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but regardless, this game is the first game on this list that is actually in no way playable in English. If you want to understand the story, you gotta know Chinese. First of all, I must say the graphics is very good. And second of all, the gimmick of this game is a little dragon on the top left of the screen that when you press it, it activates a sort of get the fuck out of my way mode. This is your bog standard fan game otherwise. There isn't really much to it besides that gimmick that I laid out. The cool thing about this game though is that it has unlimited continues, one of the few games on this list that has that feature. This also has the partner feature that I mentioned in the last game. In fact, most of these games have this kind of feature built in. I will also say this is one of the more easy Touhou games and Danmakus in general in this video. This game also has voice acting, but fuck if I know what they're saying. Last thing I'll say is basically I think this is one of the most accessible Danmakus on this list and might be the one I'd say to pick up first, if it wasn't for the fact that the game is entirely in Chinese. Anywho, let's move on. Next up is a game that, funny enough, also has an English patch that I just found out about right before recording. It's Ultimate Vitality of Imagination. I guess that's another link I gotta add in the description. Regardless, let's talk about the unique gimmick of this game. Well, it's not exactly unique because I feel like I have used this very power-up in some sort of Touhou, Danmaku, whatever the fuck. Basically, it's a black hole that you can generate with bullet grays, of course, and it sort of absorbs whatever bullets come your way. Typically, this is something that's found in the sort of shoot the bullet spin-off games and the same kind of games of those ilk. By the way, there was a shoot the bullet fan game that I was considering buying and putting in this video, but I'm too poor for that shit. Maybe next time. I will say the visual aesthetic of the backgrounds and the beautiful colors of the bullets certainly make this one of the more unique Touhou fan games, in my opinion. Difficulty-wise, it's the middle of the pack, I would say. Funny enough, I would say the music is probably the weakest aspect of the game. I don't exactly remember very many tunes from the game. Don't get me wrong, it's good. I bought the soundtrack, but keep in mind, this is a very high bar when it comes to the Touhou fan games and general Danmaku community. One thing I want to give special shoutouts to is the fact that this game has quite a few options. It is a very option-rich game. In fact, one setting that I did not use this entire playthrough is that you can actually upscale the resolution of the actual game window itself, which I never did. Chalk that up to the fact that I'm unfamiliar with the Moon Rune language and the fact that I didn't know there was an English patch until before recording. One last thing to mention. Basically, the bomb system and the life system rely on a bar instead of a set amount of fractional power-ups that you get in normal Touhou games. I thought that was kind of cool. This one is one I say check out, especially if you're into the mainline Touhou games but want something with only a slight twist. Now let's move on to a non-Touhou Danmaku, one that I actually had to bust out the good old-fashioned capture card for. It's also one that I own physically and does not cost the typical $10 to $15 most of these cost. That is because it is a licensed property based on the Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid franchise. It's called Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid Burst Forth Choro-gon Star Breath. If you are a seasoned veteran of this channel, you do know that I did show off this physical in one of my previous videos. Just know that 1, the game is pretty damn expensive, and 2, I don't know the story, but it's not because of the Touhou reasons, it's because of the fact that I haven't seen the anime. I say it's pretty damn expensive, even though it's only $30, I would say it needs to be about half that price before I say pick it up. But anyway, that's not why you're here. Let's talk about the nice, bountiful, beautiful gameplay. Rest in peace, Itagaki-san. That joke was for you, big dog. You'll notice in this gameplay that I didn't actually skip the story. Now, I would say it's because of something silly like, I'm a man of culture. But in reality, I don't know why I didn't skip it. I just felt like showing it for some reason. I don't know. I've never seen the anime. Now, this is the Danmaku that I was mentioning in the beginning that does not have a slow button. It's actually the only one on this list that doesn't have that, like I mentioned at some point. You play as 3 out of the 4 titular are dragon maids, and you go through each magical world of some sort and try to defeat the enemies and get to a boss. Now this works sort of like, the best way I can describe it is like a Marvel vs. Capcom game, where you control each character individually, and when you use them, the moment you lose that character, it's done for the playthrough. And you have 3 characters with 3 separate health bars, and you have to make sure that all characters will survive long enough to beat the game. Each character has their own distinct bullet style, has their own distinct play style, and has their own distinct Choro-gon star breath thing, which is part of the reason why it's called that long-ass title, is because of that special ability that each character has, which you can see on the bottom left of the screen, or at least the middle bottom left. You get what I'm saying? There's a whole big border around it. There's also a striking mechanic, which I rarely use in this playthrough because, quite frankly, I suck at striking, and most of the time when I end up striking enemies, I end up losing health after, which is not very fun in a playthrough where if you die with one character, you lose him for the rest of the playthrough, like I mentioned before. You also collect various tchotchkes, or as they're known as in the game, treasures throughout the game, and depending on the risk rate, you get more treasures or less treasures, or more unique treasures or less unique treasures. So Miss Kobayashi and the really big booba lady talk to you throughout the game. I don't really know what the hell they're saying. You can see in the footage what they're saying. I don't care. Actually, all the characters yap their head off, but that's for people who actually watch anime, and I haven't watched anime in a very long time. So what I say, pick up Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid bursts forth with 2 exclamation points, Choro-gon, star, breath, director's cut. Maybe, if it's on sale. If not, don't bother. Before we move on to the next game, I want to say, this is taking a lot longer than I thought it would to record all this stuff. I'm not even in the editing bay yet, so, you know, that whole bit in the beginning of like, oh, it hasn't been that long since I uploaded, well, that's now not true. Cut me some slack. I just got a surround system, and I just got it working, so I've been toying around with that shit instead of recording this video, because I'm a lazy fuck. Let's move on to a Touhou fan game that is so indiscernible from the real thing that I'm surprised it even is a Touhou fan game. It's something in Japanese. Avant-Garde Discerning Paralleler. Am I saying that right? Paralleler. It's a nonsense word. It's typical of Touhou naming schemes. I can't believe I'm mentioning this, but there is yet another download I'm going to have to include for this game because, believe it or not, on the official website of the developer that developed this fan game, you can actually download the latest patch and apply it to the Steam release, and it works perfectly fine. Again, I didn't know this until I started doing cursory research and found out that in the Steam release, they're not actually up to date when it comes to patches. By the way, nobody's reporting on the fact that you can just download the latest patch from their website, so this might be an exclusive to this actual YouTube video that you can do this to the actual Steam release. Let's move on to the gameplay that I actually recorded that does not include this patch. First off, I must point out that the game is entirely in Japanese, and also you shoot Japanese characters, which I find very funny, at least as the character that I played as. Or I should say the characters that I played with, that being Kasodani Kyoko and Kaku Sega. I mainly picked this character because the star ability, I'm already forgetting the name, but basically it's a shield that can directly dodge bullets coming ahead of you. Playing as those 2 characters is really the main gimmick of the game, and also the fact that you play individual stages and it's not continue based, if you will, being that you don't have to actually 1cc the game to beat it. Though honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if you actually had to 1cc each stage in order to get a good ending, but that doesn't matter if I can't understand the story anyway, not like you should read the story, see the earlier point in the video. Either way, that would be easier than actually fully 1cc'ing it. Oh yeah, I forgot. And one of the mid-stage bosses isn't even like a little girl. It's like a fucking mech robot. Other than that, it's pretty much your box standard Touhou game. It could totally pass for an original Touhou entry. It even has the shitty sound mixing and all the other official Touhou games. Although, unlike official Touhou games, I can't mod that shit out. This game is only $5, so I would say even if it's not the best Touhou game, it's certainly worth that price of admission, especially in this economy. So I say pick it up. Speaking of games you should pick up, yeah, I'm pretty much already spoiling what I think about this game. We're moving on to the second entry of a game I've already talked about. It's Touhou Makuka Fantastic Danmaku Festival Part 2. Apologies in advance for the inadvertent ASMR section. Somebody in my house is trying to sleep and I've been really meaning to get some recording done, so this is what you're gonna have to deal with for now. As I mentioned towards the beginning of the video, the second Touhou Makuka was the initial Touhou fan game that got me into the entire Touhou fan game scene. The gimmick of this game is that you have a sort of Sakura bloom that activates a sort of perimeter around your character that, if grazing enough bullets, can activate bombs, life, or just some power that can be used to make bullets more powerful, as is gimmick in all these Danmakus pretty much. Returning from the first game is a ton of fan service as well as fantastic music to boot. When it comes to Danmakus, I would say in general this is of moderate to more on the higher end of difficulties, but definitely not the hardest one we've talked about today. Visuals are above the average visuals of a Touhou game, but not the prettiest game you'll see or have seen in this video. Now, believe it or not, this is one of the games that I mentioned at the beginning of the video that actually came out on the actual date of the Steam release and not sometime beforehand like other fan games. This game is in English, there is no trickery here, there's no additional patch you need to install, it's just buy it on Steam and you get to play the game. First half of this gameplay session I played as a character called Yomu, and the second playthrough I decided I might as well play as Sene, considering I barely played as her in any of the other fan games. Typically I play as Marissa because I like to play with lasers and whatnot. I like her gameplay style the best, what can I say? I also like playing as Reimu, but that's because Reimu is literally the main character and is in every Touhou property ever. She's like basically Terry Bogard when it comes to the SNK universe, although fuck SNK. I hate them now because they're owned by Saudis. And because the newest Fatal Fury sucked dick. It's basically just a shittier Arxis game without all the Arxis gameplay that you expect, and a fucking soccer player and a DJ. But I digress. This is actually a Touhou fan series that goes on sale constantly, so I would say pick up all 3 of the games in the series, even though I haven't covered the third one, but trust me, it's good. We'll get to it, no spoilers. But before we move on to the next game, I will finally say that this is probably the best Touhou fan game ever. With the third game in the series, it remains to be seen. It's still getting patches to this day, and not to mention I haven't played all that much of it compared to the second game. But what the hey, let's move on to the next game. That being Touhou Phantasm Dream. The game doesn't really have a distinct gimmick in this one per se. It really is just pure Touhou action at its finest. One little cute detail that I find very cool is that Reimu, one of the main characters and one of the playable characters in this game, has her Gohei, which is her little shaky stick with the papers on it. Reimu lost her Gohei and her sprite after Touhou 14 double-dealing character. Does that mean this game takes place before Touhou DDC? I don't know, nor do I fucking care. What can I say? I'm an autist. I like things to be consistent. The graphics in this one are very rudimentary, very much so it apes off of many other Touhou games that have already existed, and really doesn't add very much to its own identity besides the dubious Chinese voice acting. Yeah, this game is in Chinese only, and I kind of feel like even if it was translated, the story would be kind of doggy doo-doo, even for the standard of Touhou. The music is probably the best part of the game, honestly, besides the pretty Kino gameplay. Did I mention this game is developed by Loong team, which I think we already covered one of their games in this very video. Despite releasing second, this is very clearly Longhong Team's first game that they developed, and the game that I covered previously, Touhou Chaos of Black Loong, is their second. I wish I was kidding, but I have to take mandatory pet breaks between recording because my needy dog is a little needy baby, and he'll whine if I don't pet him for too long, and he was whining outside of my door, so he clearly wants all the attention because he's a spoiled little baby. Little baby needs pet between every single line, otherwise he gets mega upset. Next up is
东方栖霞园
Blue Devil in Belvedere. Isn't that cool? I can do that with my voice. Let's start off the bat with the gimmick of this game, that being the power rank system. The best I can surmise of the power rank system is basically that the more power you have, it basically acts like a super special move in like a fighting game where you have like extra powerful hits, but in this case you have extra powerful bullets. Basically consider it like an overdrive mode if you played any other kind of shoot 'em up of this variety. The music in the game is pretty decent. The sound mixing, however, is fucking loud. When it comes to difficulty, this is actually one of the easiest Danmakus in this video, at least in my opinion. First of all, you get unlimited continues, and second of all, the amount of bullets on screen is nowhere near as bad as some of the other Danmakus on this list. Keep in mind, all these games are hard as fuck, but I digress. Dim graphics, they're certainly okay. I mean, they could be better, but they're pretty freaking decent. Certainly not as good as anything that comes out in the year of our Lord 2025. You know, all the freaking fantastic, not really, games that come out this year. But in all seriousness, the illustrations of the characters are quite nice, and the sprites themselves are legible and pretty alright. The backgrounds aren't nauseating or busy as all fuck. Gotta emphasize though that the music is not only good, but it very much reminds me of an official Touhou soundtrack, which is usually bang on frickin' bangers. By the way, I'm looking at the footage and I'm noticing that this game's more of just like a boss rush because there's barely any stage to begin with before you get into the copious amount of boss fights. At least more so than usual of your typical Touhou/Danmaku affair. I mean, yeah, I'm literally timing it. It takes about a minute to get to the first boss encounter and a minute to get to the actual boss encounter. But enough about this game. Let's move on to the next game. That is DANMAKAI Red Forbidden Fruit. It is the second to last game in this video that is not Touhou related in any way, although it is a quite blatant clone. Well, howdy there. It's been quite a bit since I've last recorded. Yeah, I actually teased this video ages ago, and I'm only now getting back to recording. To make a long story short, life got in the way. Hell, I even bought Danmakus in between the last time I recorded, which, given the length of this video, I'm not including them in this list. Anyway, what are we talking about? DANMAKAI Red Forbidden Fruit, that's what it is. Anyway, let's get started with that review of this game. The game's main gimmick is the fact that the power-ups are level-based. You have to graze bullets to be able to use your power-ups, and the bigger the level, the more power-uppy your power-ups are. I guess bullet clears, whatever you want to call them. You also collect these D20 looking green gems, which give you more lives through the extend feature. I also want to point out that the screen real estate is more of like a 3-4 real estate as opposed to the typical sort of Tate mode or Tate mode of the typical Touhou affair. The game is pretty generous with its life system. It gives you about 6 lives to start out with, and sometimes you can even get up to 7, which is tantamount to extending your playthrough by maybe 2.5 minutes at best, at least per continue, I would say. Because the game's not easy, let's just put it like that. As Uncle Jay would say from Survivor, "Hey Uncle Jay, how you doing?" Jeff Probst, he would say that the game goes pretty full tilt boogie when it comes to difficulty. God, that guy is cringe. Also, Also, Daniel Jones, you were supposed to be the chosen one. Why are you failing us? It was supposed to be for Jimmer. Say why? Yeah, I mean, the color palette of the game is pretty muted. It's a lot of blues and reds, and honestly, it's not exactly the best looks-wise when it comes to Danmakus. Not like that matters. It's all about the gameplay, baby. And the gameplay is aight. You know, it's pretty aight. My homie. My nice gentleman. Music's okay. Moving on. Next up is a bunch of Chinese letters. I'm sorry, I guess I somehow forgot Chinese in between the last time I saw you. Ephemeral Unnatural Balance. There you go. That's the next game, and let's get to it. This one is an oldie but a goodie. It's actually in 4x3 because it's that old. It's funny because this one doesn't feature any of the typical mainstays of the Touhou series. It features 3 characters that I believe aren't really that common to the series. The game jokes in the beginning by pretending that one of the characters is Renosuke, who I believe is the only canonical man. He's the only canonical man of the Touhou series. But regardless, you end up playing as Tokiko instead. The main gimmick of the game is the balance mode. If you gather up enough balance, you're able to unlock an alternate mode where you get to collect power-ups, as well as if you do it during a boss fight, you get to unlock an extra stage of said boss fight. But you actually have to be good at the game in order to do that, so I don't think I actually do that in this recording. I will say the character art is actually a lot better than even what ZUN is capable of. Music is on par with Touhou, but there really isn't anything that memorable from the soundtrack, although I probably should have turned on the sound effects because they're loud as fuck by default. By the way, here's the footage of me actually doing the extra stage for one of the boss fights and immediately failing. Like I said, I'm terrible at the game. The game has unlimited continues. It's okay when it comes to difficulty. It does track the amount of misses you have, the amount of bombs used, and the amount of balance, which I guess is also called Discord used. Funny that. I just now noticed that. Does this game have some sort of Turbo Sweat 1cc, you know, like some Spurg Metal Gear Solid level shit? Hey YouTube, before you get your panties in a twist, I am in fact an autist, so I get to use that slur all I want. A few final notes before we move on. The frame rate is kind of bad in this game. It kind of stabilizes at 45. The font choice in this game is comically bad, which I know is like a really minor nitpick, but I thought I should say it. Oh, and the backgrounds look like a Net Yorose game, which is, you know, it's whatever, but I thought I should point that out as well, as petty as that complaint is. Let's mosey on along to the next game. It is the second game by a developer I've already covered, and it's actually a game that I can properly say. It's Touhou Kikamu, Elegant Impermanence of Sakura. By the way, the other game developed by this developer was Blue Devil in Belvedere. Remember that one? I know I talked about it ages ago. Random aside, because I don't know when I'll be able to talk about this again, but the new Touhou game came out. I bought it, and it's good. It uses AI-generated backgrounds, which I don't really give a shit about. I'm not much of an AI fucking, you know, elitist. I do understand it has its purposes, but I also understand that it can be used to generate some absolute cancer. Touhou backgrounds, I'll let it slide. Anyway, that's not why I'm bringing this up. Randomly, this game brings back Reimu's Gohei. Why? I don't fucking know. Anyway, let's move on to the actual game that is not made by ZUN, you know, the actual namesake of the video. I want to say right off the bat, this game does not have any set gimmick, in my opinion at least. It's just straight Touhou goodness. The visual fidelity and graphics, in my opinion, are probably the very best in this video. The music is ungodly good, especially given the last few games that we've talked about that are kind of when it comes to music. This game, not a problem. It is so freaking good. The difficulty, in my opinion, strikes a nice balance. It does require that you beat it 1cc to complete the game. It does give you unlimited continues to get the bad ending, but the bullet percentage is decently high for Lunatic. Not crazy, but I do like it quite a bit, the actual challenge of the game. I guess this game does have the partner system, but I don't exactly consider that a unique gimmick, given the fact that pretty much half these fan games have that gimmick as their underlying selling point, whereas this is the only gimmick it really provides. I will say though that the pairings are actually kind of unique. I've never seen really these two characters that I'm playing as be paired before. One thing I find unique is that it combines the red and blue typical diamond with the character. I don't exactly remember what it's called. Usually they have power and like grays as the red and blue diamonds. Instead they have a purple diamond that combines both, and they have 3 cuboids, I guess, that you collect. I don't exactly remember what they do per se. The backgrounds are actually like PS2 level graphics, which is actually really high praise given that it's a Touhou fan game. There really isn't much more to elaborate on. This is just a genuinely really good fan game that I would say pick up above a lot of the other ones that I've mentioned today, because it's just an all-rounder. It's just really good in all aspects, and it doesn't do anything quite unique, but it's very good at all the things that it does, straight up. With that being said, we're moving on to the penultimate game of the video, and we're also busting out the capture card one last time. It's actually a game that's getting a sequel. By the time this video comes out, fuck, it might already be out. It's Danmaku Unlimited 3. Yes, indeed, they are making Danmaku Unlimited 4. I bought Danmaku Unlimited 3 on Switch. It is on PC, but I thought, since I own it on Switch, I might as well record it on Switch as opposed to buying it once again. So yep, we're going to land of Switch, and we're playing Danmaku Unlimited 3 next time on this long as fuck video that will never end. If you remember ages ago, I mentioned a game that doesn't have a story. Well, this is said game, and you just pop it in and play it, assuming there was an actual cartridge to pop in, but that's neither here nor there. The game is backed by a very, very heavy metal soundtrack. It is heavily reliant on the visual effects that are blasted all across the screen. That may give you the impression this game is style over substance, and well, that's a little bit true. There's plenty of substance to the game. The game is, of course, a Danmaku, so it's naturally going to be quite hard, very much extending your playthrough. But I will say this much, the gimmick of the game is basically just pure Danmaku action with a sort of graze meter that heavily affects the way you use what the equivalent is of a special move, I guess. The game has a slow mode and is very much emphasizing that you use the graze mode to use your purple laser. The legibility of everything on screen is particularly good because of the outlines of the enemies and the clear visibility of the bullets, as opposed to the backgrounds, which are very dark and muted in comparison to the very bright and very noticeable action going on screen with the bullets and enemies hopping. I think now is the time to mention this because I use this mode very heavily in this game, but most Danmakus typically have a practice mode that basically lets you try every single encounter, whether it be the boss or the stage itself, and trying to get a high score of some sort, or just trying to actually get used to the game before you go ahead and beat it for real. And this game has a particularly good one because it very much emphasizes that you get the best score and that you try and try again. By the way, did you know that every single Touhou entry made by ZUN has a password that you can enter on the menu to unlock everything, including extra mode? Several of these Danmakus actually have an extra mode, but I am so shit, I doubt I could ever unlock a single one besides the one that I've unlocked in the main ones by cheating. This game's extra mode is called True, but it also has a boss rush mode, which you unlock after, of course, beating every single boss, which I don't think every Danmaku inherently has. This is probably the best Danmaku Unlimited. I haven't played the other two, but maybe part 4 is going to be the one that makes this game obsolete, so maybe wait for that one. I don't know. Welp, boys, we did it. We made it to the final game of the video. Yes, you might already know what it is. I've very much alluded to it. It's Touhou Makuka Fantastic Danmaku Festival Part 3. Yes, this game is the most recent to come out in this video. Yes, including the farming sim. The farming sim came out September 5th of this year, whereas the third game of this trilogy came out on September 24th of this year, 19 days afterward. To give you a frame of reference, the game had not been out that long when I first started making the video. First and foremost, I must say that the game's visuals are chef magnifique. as the great ass French say. The music also makes my car. The game has count 'em, 3 extra difficulty modes, 1 being Ultra and 2 being modes of which I have yet to unlock. In this game, I played as Marissa, and as you can see by the playthrough, there's this sort of like Ultra Hyper mode sort of mode where if you build up enough grays, you get to blast your enemy with your super special laser. The sort of aesthetic that the game's going for is a bit more horror oriented for this part of the trilogy, I must say. The kind of stages and bullets that you encounter are not exactly unique, but the order and orientation that you encounter them certainly are something I've not seen before. By the way, as far as I know, I don't think this game has unlimited continues. I think this is actually one of the only games in the video that I managed to at least get an ending with the cinematic continues that I had, which I don't know, it's kind of impressive for me, I guess. The challenge is properly set for each difficulty. On hard, it was hard, and I believe on Lunatic, you're probably crazy if you manage to beat it, and God knows what those other 3 difficulties have in store for you. The borders are actually super cool. When you encounter a boss, it shows you the character when you first encounter it, which is kind of cool. Also, I'm sorry for all you OCD freaks out there who hate the fact that this game is not properly centered given the border of the game and the border around the border of the game. Also, just speaking about the borders again, your character makes like a specific face on the left hand side if you get hurt or if you're in trouble or whatever. It's like really cool, the interactivity of the game. The game is an absolute love letter to Touhou, and it is insane amount of efforts for a fan game. Really, it's absurd. The background's even like motion blur as you speed up and slow down. There's tons of effects. The effects are really good, and the frame rate is a consistent 60. This is honestly, maybe besides the second game, which is a special place in my heart, this might be the best Danmaku possibly fucking ever. It's so damn good. So this is basically where I'm gonna leave it. If there's any lesson you can take from this video, it's that Danmakus are out there, they're plentiful, and the fan stuff is arguably better than the official Touhou stuff. Like, it's so bountiful and so plentiful. You have tons of options to choose from, including ones that I didn't include in the video. So maybe next time when there's an appropriate amount, maybe I'll do another one. I don't know. Either way though, time to say goodbye. So peace.